गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद राधा शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna again.
Krishna.
So as I did in the previous two Sunday feast sessions, I'm going to read from this book called Journey of Self-Discovery. Okay. It's a nice compilation of Srila Prabhupada's teachings and conversations. So today's conversation is going to be from this chapter here titled Plato, Goodness and Government. And this is part of a series of philosophical discussions Srila Prabhupada had with his personal secretary at that time. Many of you have heard about Shyamasundar Prabhu. Just a very fascinating series of conversations. So, it doesn't feel dry at all how many ever times you read. So if you have a chance, please feel free to read these conversations. It's the sessions were recorded and published to provide an understanding of Western philosophy, psychology, and science from the viewpoint of the timeless teachings of India's Vedic literature. So this happened around 1972 and 1973, just for your information. So I'm going to highlight a few key points here, so please follow along. As I mentioned in the previous two sessions, the purpose of doing this is for us to gain a deeper appreciation of Srila Prabhupada, how brilliant he was, how amazing he was, how expert he was in problemizing the complex Vedic teachings. So ordinary souls like us could relate to it and actually go beyond it, right? Could apply those teachings. So today I'm very excited again because it's yet another opportunity for us to appreciate Srila Prabhupada. So Shyamasundar Prabhu begins. So he's going to present Plato's philosophy and various teachings and all that, and we'll get to hear what Srila Prabhupada has to say. And Srila Prabhupada's responses at once are profound, but at the same time very humorous and non-judgmental, right? He's very much focused on the philosophy or the teachings of Plato, not necessarily attacking the person, right? That's not Prabhupada's intention ever. So Plato, not necessarily. So Shyamasundar Prabhu begins saying, Plato believes society can enjoy prosperity and harmony only if it places people in working categories or classes according to their natural abilities. He thought people should find out their natural abilities and use those abilities to their fullest capacity as administrators, as military men, or as craftsmen. Most important, the head of the state should not be an average or mediocre man. Instead, um, society should be led. Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Haribol. Instead, society should be led by a very wise and good man, a philosopher king, or a group of very wise and good men. So Srila Prabhupada's immediate response to that was, this idea appears to be taken from the Bhagavad Gita. So he's he's immediately recognizing the similarity between Plato's philosophy and the Vedic teachings, but also in a very polished way, he's saying how this idea appears to be taken from Bhagavad Gita, right? So where Krishna says that the ideal society has four divisions: Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. So we are aware of that. So then Prabhupada elaborates on that a bit more, talks about how, according to different modes of nature, the society should be arranged. Um, and how the Brahmanas, the most intelligent men who are interested in transcendental knowledge and philosophy, should be given the topmost posts. And under their instructions, the administrator should work. So, presentation of Vedic Varnashrama Dharma. Now, I'm not going to read the entire conversation, so don't be surprised if you see me jumping, because I want to focus on a few key points here. um, Then Prabhupada makes an important point. This is Vedic civilization, people living simply on agriculture and cow protection. If you have enough milk, grains, fruits, and vegetables, you can live very nicely. Right? So, this idea of simple living and high thinking is very much the essence of Vedic life or Vedic civilization. At present, this Krishna consciousness movement is training Brahmanas. If the administrators take our advice and conduct the state in a Krishna conscious way, there will be an ideal society throughout the world. Right? So, very clear presentation of Varnashrama Dharma. And then Shyamasundar Prabhu poses a very important question. So, Srila Prabhupada, how does modern society differ from the Vedic ideal? Right? And Prabhupada very clearly points out a few things. One is the fact that we have large scale industrialization, which means exploitation of one man by another. Such industry was unknown in Vedic civilization. And actually, he says it was unnecessary. So that is, it's an interesting statement right there, right? Such industry was unknown in Vedic civilization. Now, one may immediately jump and say, hey, look how primitive the Vedic people were. They didn't even know industrialization, right? But then Prabhupada immediately dismisses any preemptively dismisses any questions that may arise about the advancement of Vedic civilization, right? So he says it was unnecessary. It's not like the Vedic civilization couldn't do it. It's just that they didn't think it was important. And then he also adds, in addition, modern civilization has taken to slaughtering and eating animals, which is barbarous. It is not even human. Right? So he flips the coin immediately. It's not like the Vedic civilization was primitive. It's actually how we live today is barbarous and primitive. So that's once again just an example of Srila Prabhupada's brilliance, right? So he says how without religious or ideal character brahmanas, the society is lost. So today we don't have that situation, and the leaders, the so-called leaders, are allowing animal slaughter, for example, right? So basically, Prabhupada agrees with what Plato says, that the saintly philosophers should be at the head of the state. And the famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita is 4.13 that talks about this, right? Chaturvarnya Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. According to the three modes of material nature and work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. Right? Now, so until now, it's fairly familiar wisdom that we have heard many, many times, right? In Srila Prabhupada's books, classes, and other lectures that we have heard. But the conversation then moves on to some other very interesting concepts, and I wanted to focus more on these points, right? So Shyamasundar Prabhu says Plato's understanding of the social order was based on his observation that man has a threefold division of intelligence, courage, and appetite. He said that the soul has these three qualities. So interesting, definitely, interesting analysis. With this threefold division: intelligence, courage, and appetite. He seems to be missing one, right? Krishna talks about four classes: Brahmanas, right? Intellect. Then you have the Kshatriyas, so maybe analogous to the courage. And then there is Vaishyas, who have businessmen like character, right? And then the appetite, so basically referring to the laborer class. But Prabhupada's focus is not on the 3 versus 4 fold division. That's not an important, it's not the most important point here. He catches on to something even more important. So Shyamasundar Prabhu says, Plato said that the soul has these 3 qualities, right? And that's what Srila Prabhupada jumps on immediately. He says that is a mistake. The soul does not have any material qualities. The soul is pure, but because of his contact with the different qualities of material nature, he is dressed in various bodies. And then he says, Plato, it appears that in his practical understanding, Plato identified the soul with the bodily dress. And that does not show very good intelligence. Right? So this is not so much a criticism of Plato, it's a criticism of our materialistic mind, the mind that identifies soul with the body. So Prabhupada says that does not show very good intelligence. In why did Plato do so? Shyamasundar Prabhu says he believed that man's position is marginal between matter and spirit. So therefore he also stressed the development of the body. And this is an important nugget of Plato's philosophy, because his whole education program, which we'll talk more about, is based on this idea that man's position is marginal, like we are between matter and spirit. Not in the sense of marginal that we talk about, not the tatashta shakti or marginal energy. Plato's position is man's identity is marginal, meaning we have both consciousness and matter. Somehow we are a hybrid, right? So in that sense, marginal, right? But Prabhupada says this means that in practice, Plato very strongly identified the self as the body. And Prabhupada then makes an inquiry. What was Plato's idea of education? And this gets into some very interesting philosophical points. Shamsundar Prabhu responds, to awaken the student to his natural position, whatever his natural abilities or talents are. Now, this seems so similar to Krishna consciousness, isn't it? But the devil is in the details. So that's where we need an expert like Srila Prabhupada to help peel the onion and show us what the true philosophy is, right? So Prabhupada says, what is that natural position? Right? So he wants to understand more and more what Plato is trying to get at. Shamsundar Prabhu says, the position of moral goodness. In other words, Plato thought everyone should be educated to work in whatever ways best suited to awaken his natural moral goodness. So Prabhupada identifies another flaw in this philosophy, right? And this is a concept we are also very familiar with, which is Krishna conscious devotees. We are not just interested in moral goodness because that's still on the material platform. So Srila Prabhupada talks about sattva in this world, which is always infected by the lower modes of ignorance and passion, right? Tamas and rajas. And then distinguishes that from the Vasudeva platform, which is the platform of Shuddha Sattva, right? And then he talks about how to come to the platform of pure goodness, which is the ideal. One has to undergo austerities and, tapasa brahmacharyena shamena cha damena cha. So this is leading into the importance of brahmacharya training in Krishna consciousness and how that is critical. That kind of austerity is critical to come to this platform of Shuddha Sattva, right? Now, but then thankfully he says today, however, this austerity is very difficult to follow. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the process of taking to Krishna consciousness directly. In this case, one needs simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and follow the regulative principles given by the spiritual master. Then one immediately rises to the platform of pure goodness. Right? So in one paragraph, Srila Prabhupada gives the essence of, not just the essence of Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, but actually the compassion of Lord Chaitanya, by giving us a very practical and easy process in chanting of Hare Krishna. Okay, now we get into deeper Plato's thoughts on education. Now listen to this, very interesting. Plato thought the state should train citizens to be virtuous. So once again, his focus is on achieving the state of moral goodness, right? And what is his education program? So he says his system of education went like this. For the first 3 years of life, the child should play and strengthen his body. That is interesting. So 1 to 3, he's already talking about play and exercise. From 3 to 6, the child should learn religious stories. From 7 to 10, he should learn gymnastics. From 10 to 13, reading and writing. From 14 to 16, poetry and music. And from 16 to 18, mathematics. And from 18 to 20, he should undergo military drill. From 20 to 35, those who are scientific and philosophical should remain in school and continue learning. And the warriors should engage in military exercises. I'm sure all of you are feeling the same way I'm feeling, that thankfully we didn't go through Plato's school system. This looks stressful actually. But it looks interesting. There's a lot of interesting elements here. There's a lot of good recommendations, right? And look, it looks like he's attacking a number of areas that are of interest to any child or any youth, any early adult, right? So it does speak to his broad level of thinking as a philosopher. But look at the very next question Srila Prabhupada poses, how precise that is, right? So Prabhupada asks, is this educational program for all men, or are there different types of education for different men? Shyamasundar Prabhu responds, no, this is for everyone. Srila Prabhupada says, this is not very good. If a boy is intelligent and inclined to philosophy and theology, why should he be forced to undergo military training? Shyamsundar Prabhu says, well, Plato said that everyone should undergo 2 years of military drill. And the very next statement will see Srila Prabhupada's appreciation of time. But why should someone waste 2 years? No one should waste even 2 days. This is nonsense, imperfect ideas. Shyamasundar Prabhu, Plato said this type of education reveals what category a person belongs to. He did have the right idea that one belongs to a particular class according to his qualification. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, that we also say, but we disagree that everyone should go through the same training. Now, a series of important points come up in this paragraph. So let's pay close attention to this. So Srila Prabhupada says the spiritual master should judge the tendency or disposition of the student at the start of his education. He should be able to see whether a boy is fit for military training, administration, or philosophy, and then he should fully train the boy according to his particular tendency. Right? So his point is, if someone is inclined in a certain direction, why should he or she waste time in a different um, area, right? In trying to develop a different vocational skill, for example. And he gives the example of Arjuna, right? Arjuna belonged to a Kshatriya family, and Dronacharya did not focus on Brahma Vidya. He focused on Dhanurveda or military science. So that's an expert teacher, right? So the key point Prabhupada makes in this page is no one should be trained in everything. That is a waste of time. This is something we all should pay close attention to, because we all play the role of spiritual master, spiritual teacher for various individuals, right, in our lives. So we should take this to heart. We shouldn't expect every child to be good at everything. And we shouldn't expect a child to learn every area in the hope that somehow they will discover their natural ability. So that was Plato's method. If I have them exposed to everything, somehow they will identify when they're 35 or so. Here's my natural ability, right? Whether a boy or a girl. And then they'll become very good at that, or that's their natural position. They'll be happy. But we shouldn't have that expectation, and at least that's what Srila Prabhupada is teaching us here very clearly. No one should be trained in everything. That is a waste of time. Right? And sometimes, at a practical level, when we take on some leadership roles, let's say we are driving some initiatives within ISKCON, we should learn to apply this principle as well, because we'll come across people, boys and girls, that have very different proclivities, very different tendencies, very different strengths, very different gifts. And we should learn to engage each person in a mood of service so that their natural tendencies grow and grow so in Krishna consciousness. Right? So if someone is, say, not willing or showing interest in performing a particular type of Krishna conscious activity, right? We shouldn't harshly judge them, right? Let's say if someone feels, I'm more inclined to philosophy versus Kirtan, or I'm more inclined to doing physical service versus giving classes, or I'm more inclined to do this versus that, or anything it may be. We should be very careful not to come to quick judgments, because these tendencies are coming from very deep drivers that we cannot even fathom easily, right? And this is what Srila Prabhupada talks about later. He says the tendencies are influenced by two things. One, our past life, and then by training. So those two important points he makes. And I'll move on to the next point here, and turning page here. Prabhupada makes another very important point here, and I know the concept, I've heard it before, but I've not seen it in the way he says it here. It's very beautiful. He says, so in Shyamsundar Prabhu first says, Plato believed that the student's natural tendency wouldn't come out unless he practiced everything, right? So we talked about that. So Srila Prabhupada says again, no, that is wrong, because hear this statement. Prabhupada says, because the soul is continuous, and therefore everyone has some tendency from his previous birth. Right? We have always heard the soul being called eternal, right? Full of consciousness and so on and so forth. But I've not seen this use of this word continuous in very many places. I thought it was cool to think of it that way. So he says the soul is continuous, and therefore everyone has some tendency from his previous birth. So this is one of the key flaws of Plato's philosophy. Does that make sense? So Prabhupada says, I think Plato did not realize this continuity of the soul from body to body. Right? And he talks about how in the Vedic culture, immediately after a child is born, and a good astrologer, a first-class astrologer, Prabhupada says, can tell what line a child is coming from and how he or she should be trained. So once again, this idea of Plato's idea that a person's natural abilities will not manifest unless he is given a chance to try everything is pointed out to be faulty by Srila Prabhupada. Shyamasundar Prabhu comments, Plato saw that some people listen primarily to their intelligence, and he said they are governed by the head. Some people have an aggressive disposition. Such courageous types are governed by the heart or by passion. And then some people who are inferior simply want to feed their appetites. He said these people are animalistic, and he believed they are governed by the liver. Prabhupada says that is not a perfect description. Everyone has a liver, a heart, and all the bodily limbs. Whether one is in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance depends on one's training and on the qualities he acquired during his previous life. Right? So there's once again two things that determine someone's proclivity. And this is why one must be Krishna conscious to understand what a particular individual, what proclivities a particular individual may have, right? And then accordingly nurture it. Right? According to the Vedic process, at birth, one is immediately given a classification. Psychological and physical symptoms are considered, and generally it is ascertained from birth that a child has a particular um, tendency. However, this tendency may change according to circumstances. And listen to this. This is another very interesting point he makes. He says, if one does not fulfill his assigned role, he can be transferred to another class. So it's not the end of the world, right? In the modern world, the way our education is set up, if someone fails at something, it becomes a big deal, right? Both for the individual and for the society that's observing that individual, we make it a big deal. But Prabhupada here says if one does not fulfill his assigned role, he can be transferred to another class, right? So at a practical level, for example, if someone is, say, not fulfilling a particular service in our community, it's not the end of the world. Maybe they can do a different service. And that's how liberal Srila Prabhupada's society is, or at least the facility is there, right? That opportunity is there. And we are almost at the end. So another final important point, Shyamsundar Prabhu says, Plato also believed that one must qualify for his post. His system of government was very democratic. He thought everyone should be given a chance to occupy the different posts. Now it sounds very nice, but Srila Prabhupada says, actually we are the most democratic because we are giving everyone a chance to become a first-class Brahmana. The Krishna consciousness movement is giving even the lowest member of society a chance to become a Brahmana by becoming Krishna conscious. Chandalo api dvijashreshto hari bhakti parayanaha. Although one may be born in a family of Chandalas, dog eaters, as soon as he becomes God conscious or Krishna conscious, he can be elevated to the highest position, which is Hari Bhakti. Krishna says that everyone can go back home, back to Godhead. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. I'm equal to everyone. Everyone can come to me. There's no hindrance. What is the purpose of social orders and state government? Shyamasundar Prabhu is asking. Srila Prabhupada says the ultimate purpose is to make everyone Krishna conscious. That is the perfection of life. And the entire social structure should be molded with this aim in view. Of course, not everyone can become fully Krishna conscious in one lifetime. Just as not all students in a university can attain the PhD degree in one attempt. But the idea of perfection is to pass the PhD examination, and therefore the PhD courses should be maintained. Similarly, an institution like this Krishna consciousness movement should be maintained so that at least some people can attain and everyone can approach the ultimate goal, Krishna consciousness. So the goal of the state government is to help everyone become Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada, oh sorry, that's Shyamasundar Prabhu is posing a question. So the goal of the state government is to help everyone become Krishna conscious? Srila Prabhupada, yes, Krishna consciousness is the highest goal. Therefore, Therefore, everyone should help this movement and take advantage of it. Regardless of his work, everyone can come to the temple. The instructions are for everyone, and prasadam is distributed to everyone. Therefore, there is no difficulty. Everyone can contribute to this Krishna consciousness movement. The Brahmanas can contribute their intelligence, the Kshatriyas their charity, the Vaishyas their grain, milk, fruits, and flowers, and the Shudras their bodily service. By such joint effort, everyone can reach the same goal, Krishna consciousness, the perfection of life. So, I want to summarize the key points that Srila Prabhupada made, or at least the ones that I highlighted in this session. So, number one was how Vedic civilization is based on simple living and high thinking, right? Agriculture and cow protection. And that's the recipe for a very nice life, Prabhupada says. Second, he says soul does not have any material qualities. So a clear distinction should be made between soul and matter. So Plato's philosophy that man's position is marginal, i.e., that is in his mind, we are both made of matter and spirit, is faulty. And then Prabhupada also makes another important point, which is no one should be trained in everything. That is a waste of time. Number 4, he says the soul is continuous, tendencies are pre-existing. So the role of a spiritual master or teacher is to identify those tendencies and to nurture it. Right? So we need to be very careful not to look at Krishna consciousness as like a cookie cutter formula, right? It's not everyone has to behave in the same way. If a child is not showing interest in certain aspects, that's okay. There's something deeper that's going on, and that's what we need to understand and probably help address. And if the child is showing interest in certain other areas, that's great. Let's try to nurture that. Right? And then Prabhupada concludes, of course, we are the most democratic because Lord Chaitanya's movement is giving a chance to everyone to become a first-class Brahmana, and to do so by the simple method of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If all of you can unmute for a minute, then we can all chant together once more.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you. So let me stop there, see if there is any questions or discussion points. Any
Sorry.
questions or comments?
Yeah, we were not allowed to unmute for a while, hence the delay. So my question is, perhaps the division of society was also so, if...
talking
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So perhaps the division of society was also to kind of that perhaps the Brahmin should not mingle with the like people who are of a higher inclination should not necessarily mingle with others, perhaps also so much. Yeah.
So there is a principle there which is important to understand, which is based on association. Our body is influenced by that particular mode of nature, right, that we are associating with. So if someone has the service of a brahmana or kshatriya or any category for that matter, if they mingle or associate with the other category too much, they can get influenced by that mode. So there is a principle there, but one needs to be very careful how that principle is applied, so people or society don't view that as you're trying to distance yourself because you think you're superior, right? So that's a different issue, but the principle is valid. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that does. But at the same time, I heard you say that it really did not matter which category you belong to. Achieving Krishna consciousness is possible in any of those categories.
Right. So there's two levels at which we all have to operate all the time. One is the transcendental basis, or the transcendental platform on which our life should be based on, and then there is the psychophysical activities that we have to do in harmony with that transcendental platform and in conjunction with it, right? So we're always acting on these two levels, or at least encouraged to consider these two levels. So depending on which level one is at predominantly, right? So for example, if it's a group of pure devotees hanging out, right? Think about the assembly of sages in Naimisharanya.
I mean, show me. No, that's what I'm saying.
What an august assembly it was of pure devotees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now there, it's like there's no two platforms really. You just act on the transcendental platform, and there's really no need for making any distinctions even, right? But the reality is we are not at that level of consciousness or community or action all the time. We usually, it's a mix.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where this whole varnashrama idea and applying that carefully becomes very valuable, because it's very, very much attuned to the reality that we live in, right? So that's why we see even in the instructions of our acharyas, like Rupa Goswami talks about how a Kanishta Adhikari should behave, how a Madhyama Adhikari should behave, right? How an Uttama Adhikari should behave. So there is different instructions given, because the reality is we're all on different levels of consciousness, and the society is very diverse when it comes to consciousness. So there's that balance that has to be struck, if that makes sense.
It does, but is it possible in Kali Yuga? Is also a question.
If what is possible?
If this undiscriminating division possible in Kali Yuga?
Not in Not if there is no Krishna conscious basis. And that's why if at all it can happen, it has to happen in Krishna consciousness movement. Because if you try to do outside of that, it's impossible.
Right,
At
because
least,
yeah, the Bhagavatam says that in Kali Yuga, just because you have the Yajñopavitam or the sacred thread, people think they're superior.
right. Yeah. So that's exactly anything outside of Krishna consciousness, it's impossible. What to speak of impractical? It's impossible. So that's why, if you remember, one of the sessions we talked about spiritual conceptions and material conceptions. You may recall that. So this is like that. If we don't have clear spiritual conceptions, it's impossible.
Yeah. Right? Okay. Chalo, thank you.
But even with spiritual conceptions, how do you have that unenvious division where you consider yourself, well, my quality is just that of a Shudra? I have difficulty understanding that.
Can you say that question again? So my quality is that of a Shudra. I didn't catch that point.
So let's say we are in a Krishna conscious society where we are unenvious of what division you belong to.
Right.
How would you be categorized in any one of those categories is my question.
So the purpose is not so much to categorize. The purpose is to engage. Right. So the categorization actually follows the engagement, if that makes sense. And as long as that engagement or behavior or activities is based on the principle Srila Prabhupada is talking about, like tendencies are nurtured and trained, we don't have to necessarily go into categories and, oh, look, this devotee should be in this bucket, this devotee should be in this bucket. We don't have to do that, because the more important thing is the engagement piece. Are people, because remember, bhakti is practical activity, it's not practical labeling.
Yeah, now you're making, I get it now, you're making.
Right. So and it's happening, it's in very.
So you're saying one person might be more inclined in gardening and kind of labor type of work.
Yeah.
Another person might be interested in more scholarly and reading and archana type of work. So that's how you're saying the division will fall by engagement, you're saying.
Yeah. So they both are engaged, and if they're both doing those activities for Krishna's pleasure, which is most important, then it doesn't really matter what bucket they go in, because the engagement puts them in the Krishna bucket.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying identifying them with a category is false or bad thing to do. All I'm saying, it's unimportant compared to the final goal, which is engagement in Krishna bucket. Right? That's
right.
The most important item here, because the rest will it follows. And even if it doesn't, even if it's imperfect, that's fine. The key piece is that engagement nicely being done, and is that person happy, and is that person, not only is that person happy, are they meaningfully contributing to the rest of the society?
Right. So in a sense, you are dividing Krishna's service in the best of your abilities, in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think, as I want to just highlight the last 2 points I made, which is two things. If that person is engaged well, they would be happy. Second is they're contributing meaningfully to the society. Both should happen, right? Because I remember in one of Srila Prabhupada's conversations, someone brings up, hey, Srila Prabhupada, there is this new devotee, he's chanting 192 rounds, right? Like trying to be like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Mhm.
And, maybe that devotee was very happy doing that, who knows? But Srila Prabhupada said, wait for some time, he'll stop. Right? So, because at the end of the day, these two things should happen. Someone should be happy, but there should be meaningful contributions to the society as well. Right?
Right. So because someone who is scholarly and interested in Arjuna may not necessarily be good at farming or something,
Exactly.
and someone is good at farming may not be that interested in being scholarly and doing
That's
a
perfectly fine.
different kind of service, right? But as long as that service is being done in your in your field of happiness and in Krishna consciousness, it really does not matter which
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and so service to the absolute is on the absolute platform. So there's no distinction between farming versus deity worship versus cooking versus taking care of children. There's no distinction if it is done for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna.
But does that mean that you cannot kind of move into the other categories at times
No,
at
Prabhupada
all?
says, the Prabhupada actually specifically says people can move to other things. That's why we have to be careful once again. If someone is doing a certain type of activity for a while, doesn't mean that they've somehow found their natural position and that's it, right? They've hit the ceiling. No, they may surprise us. We may surprise ourselves. So being open to that possibility is actually an aspect of Krishna consciousness.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you answered my question fully.
Krishna
Thanks.
consciousness is everything that's opposite of materialism. Materialism is, it's all close-minded. It has to be
Mhm.
this way, it has to be that way, or it's not good. Krishna consciousness, there's plenty of possibilities. And being open to that is an aspect of Krishna consciousness as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Those are really thought-provoking questions and comments, Mother. Thank you. Any other
Very
comments?
good, very good question by Mataji. And I just, I just, I just want to add one thing, Prabhuji, that in Krishna consciousness, people are at human platform, so they will understand gradually their nature, and that's why it's possible in Krishna consciousness only. Otherwise, people act whimsically, so it's not possible outside Krishna consciousness.
Right. Right. Because in Krishna consciousness, the soul is moved by the super soul. And because of that, the body moves accordingly, right? In materialism, it's the mind moving the body without the super soul taking an active part. Remember that, right? The super soul just witnesses. So that's why it's problematic in materialism. Anything that is done in materialism may appear to be good at a superficial level, at a temporary level, but doesn't have a lot of basis or runway. Does it make sense? Okay, it's probably trying to unmute. Are there any other questions or comments? We have probably 3 more minutes. Hare Krishna? Is someone saying something? Okay. If there are no further comments, let's end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And I just want to announce, based on the message that I received from Ananda Gauranga Prabhu or Amrita Keli Mataji, they are saying there will be Aarti today after the class. So people do not please drop after this class. And we're also grateful to two sponsors today. Program sponsor Omio Das, and then flower sponsor Romeo Shah. Okay. So maybe if you can all unmute and we can all say Haribol to thank them.
Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you very much.
Haribol.
Okay.
Haribol. So everybody please stay tuned. We are going to have Aarti now, followed by Nourishing Prayers. So it's going to be a full Sunday program minus the feast.
I'm leaving.
Feasting in our own homes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, devotee, just one more quick announcement. Like I will be muting everyone so that in interest of it won't create any disturbance. So if you want to speak something or say something, please raise your hand so that I can unmute. Thank you.
Haribol, Rasrat Prabhu, can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay. So me and my family, we are going to lead the Aarti today.
Right. So you are in a Jan. The ID
Yes.
is Janvi, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm muting all and just unmuting you only.
Okay. Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste
Mataji, because
Swati Devi Gauravani Pratayine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatarishtarine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pratayine Nirvishesha Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare
Krishna, Krishna,
Krishna.
Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paraprajakacharya Asotara Satasri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnu Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatarasata Shri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ramsikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Lord Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Lord
Jai.
Singha Dev Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Shalagram Shilas Ki Jai. Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Hare Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Hare Krishna, Pyare Mohan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Advaita Chandra here. Haribol, where did you get your transcendental laptop?
This transcendental laptop.
Yeah, seems to
because of
withstand
this
all
magic
5
number.
elements. It seems
It's
to
because
withstand
of
all 5
transcendental.
elements.
It's not my laptop, it's my wife's.
Okay.
Okay, Mataji, go ahead.
Okay, Prabhu. Rasraj Prabhu, I would like to share my screen.
Yeah. You're able to share your screen?
No, not yet. It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. Can you send a request? Okay, let me.
Okay.
Okay, you can do that now.
Now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for coming for the virtual Sunday feast program today. We have sponsors for the program. The Sunday feast is being sponsored by Omio Prabhu for his Guru Shri Krishnananda Swami's disappearance in March. And Romeo Shah is sponsoring the flowers for this week. So can we loudly chant Hari Bol for our feast sponsor and our flower sponsor?
Hari
Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Bol.
If anybody else is interested in sponsoring the feast or the flowers for the lordships, then you can contact Pyare Prabhu or Jiva Mataji at the phone number in the slide. It's 602897252. We will have chanting now for our feast sponsors. Rasraj Prabhu, I'm going to mute myself and stop sharing the screen, and Jai Radhe can do the chanting for the feast sponsors now.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Amrita Kaylee.
Hare Krishna. We have one more feast sponsor for today. Anisha and Raman would like to sponsor for Govind's 3rd birthday. I have few more announcements. I didn't mean to put Anisha on the spot, but Anisha, after the announcements are done, perhaps you can turn on your video, bring the birthday boy, and maybe we all can sing for him.
Jai.
Yay. So tomorrow is Ekadashi. Aloud Haribol. Haribol.
Haribo.
The fast opening time on May 19th, Tuesday, is 5:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. We generally don't announce, but it's a narrower window than usual and ends earlier than the usual. So 8 till 8 a.m. is the fast breaking time. 5:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. on Tuesday, May 19th, for fast breaking. A quick recap of our weekly programming, online programming. We have Bhagavad Gita class every day from Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 7 p.m. we have a recap of the Bhagavad Gita classes that were covered from Monday through Friday. Sunday evening, we have the Sunday feast program starting at 4 p.m. We have Saturday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class at 8 a.m. On Friday evening at 5 p.m. we have the Kids Sangha. This is not a structured class. This is just some time for the congregation kids to come together and basically chill out and hang out, online. We do have moderators present in the chat window that time. So Madhubhashni Mataji or Krishna Priya are there. The children won't be by themselves chatting, but there will be an adult moderator there. On Sunday at 2:45 p.m., we have the Sunday School for Children. This is a structured class. I believe kids are doing Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 right now. And both the programs are highly liked and highly reviewed by adults as well as children. So we have seen many more new kids join the program. So we would highly encourage all of you to take advantage of this weekly online programming. And I covered Ekadashi, covered the timings for the programs. So maybe we all, Anisha, are you able to bring Govind on video? Okay, so I see the birthday boy is there, and Rasraj Prabhu, maybe is Nandgopal is Nandgopal?
There we go. Oh.
Ah, so cute. Okay, so Nandgopal, you can lead us into the ceremonial birthday song.
Govind, say Haribol.
Haribol, Shangi, come around here. Let me do the candle. Govind, how is it that you're so nicely sitting in that chair today?
Mataji, driving force is cake and pizza.
Okay, the driving force is cake.
Nandagopal Prabhu, go ahead.
Nandgopal.
Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you.
Hare Krishna,
dear Govind. Hare
Krishna to you.
May you
May you
never
never take
birth
birth
again.
again.
May you
Never take
take
birth
birth
again.
again. May you
Never
never
take
take
birth
birth
again.
again.
Go back, go back
To
God.
go back,
Go
go
back
back
to
to
God.
Godhead.
Go
Go
back
back, go back
to
to Godhead.
Mataji, Mataji, this is on Shariman Prabhuji and Jeeva Mataji.
Prabhuji, we want nice try, Raman Prabhu.
Thanks, God.
Mataji,
I don't want to eat the cake.
Birthday party.
I don't eat the cake first. I want the pizza first.
Anisha and Raman Bale's son.
Mataji, Anisha told me she's going to feed me like that for next 1 month.
Look, nicely decorated house.
Yes.
Look at their house. It's nice and decorated.
Pizza, cake.
Is
it
Jahnavi's brother's birthday? Whose
Nobody can be
birthday?
invited.
Oh, Haribol.
With so many people. Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't think I need it. But...
Mataji, I also cut the strawberries.
Yes, you can eat them.
Thank you, everyone. Either.
Thank you, everyone.
Haribol, nice to
Haribol.
see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Govinda, that naughty boy of that optometrist.
No, this is a different Govind. Plenty of Govind.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I think we are closing our Sunday celebration. Thank you all for joining. I hope you can join next week too. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Pyare Prabhu, you want to say something?
I already said something. I don't know if anybody heard me.
No, we didn't. Please repeat. Sorry.
I said it's time for everyone to go home now.
Haribol. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Wonderful. Hari Bol. Glories to Prabhupada.
Argash Prabhupada.